Good evening, everyone. My name's Lori Napolitano. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Schools here at MS 86. I've been here in the district for a long time. I was at the high school as an assistant principal and principal for about 14 years before moving to this office. Joining me as hosts tonight, we have Jim Hand, principal at Bonnie Eagle Middle School, and Selena Levitt, assistant principal at Bonnie Eagle High School. And kind of in the background, we have Sherry Zulik, one of our transportation workers, and who's also our transportation trainer, and Clay Gleason, our superintendent. We will let people continue to join, but I'm going to go ahead and get started. I just want to let everyone know that this is being recorded, so we ask that you keep your phones or computers on mute. And what we'll do is, when one of us who's a host but isn't talking at that moment, we'll keep an eye on the chat. And if you have questions, we'll put them in the chat. And if it's something that needs to be answered along the way, we'll jump in and answer it. But if it's something that can wait, we'll do a whole bunch of questions and answers at the end. I'm hoping this will be an hour or less. It depends on the questions, I guess. So welcome aboard, everyone. This is what we've decided here in MS 86 last year, was that we were going to move to using some of the strategies from the ALICE program to enhance our response and our preparation for if there is ever a critical violent incident at school. So this is not something that goes into place for every single incident that happens at school. This would be reserved for those really dangerous situations. And here in the, so we've invested a lot of time in this. And starting this fall, we began training staff. And we're at a point now where we've started to get a critical mass of staff who are comfortable with the ALICE strategies. And so we're ready to start moving forward with a little more enhanced training, and hopefully next fall bringing students in. So that's where we're at. Why did we choose ALICE here? Mainly because traditional lockdown practices work for some scenarios, but are flawed when it comes to surviving active shooter events. Law enforcement response times vary from town to town. Here in this area, it could be 15 minutes or more by the time you add in how long it takes to dial 911, how long it takes to explain to the dispatcher what's going on and for them to ask questions, and then for them to send out a call to the police, and then for police or emergency crews to respond. Depending on where you live in our district and where our schools are located, that response time varies. ALICE is different than traditional lockdown because it empowers staff to choose the best option depending on the circumstances. I have a video clip I'm going to show. It's about 1.5 minutes long, just a little testimonial about ALICE. It is endorsed by the International Association of Police, Department of Homeland Security, FEMA, and the U.S. Department of Education. For those of you who just joined, put questions in the chat. I've got my screen up in presentation mode, so I won't see your hand if it's raised, but Jim and Selena are keeping an eye on it. So let's try to see if this video is
story. We've been known for our customer service since 1973.
All our students had implemented ALICE. On the morning of January 20th, I got a call. I could tell immediately in his voice that he was extremely tense. And he says, there's just been a shooting at school. We've got the weapon. Everything's okay, but you probably need to get here pretty quickly. When I got here, there was already quite a few first responders on the scene. After the shooting, we really realized that ultimately how important ALICE was, how important it was that we had some safety precautions that were put in place. Until that point, I always thought that, it would never happen here. This just isn't a district that you would think of anything like that happening in. During our school shooting, no one died from the shooting. We had one student that was severely injured, had been shot twice with a shotgun at close range. Fortunately, miraculously, he was able to live through that. So for something like this extreme to happen, it shocks you. Misconception I believe that most people have is that law enforcement are going to be the first ones on the scene to deal with the situation. In our situation, that was not the case, and I think in most situations that's not going to be the case. It's going to be your staff who are in the building and your students that are going to be the first people to deal with the situation. But when I got here that day and arrived on the scene, I couldn't believe how well our students had implemented Alice. In less than 2 minutes, our whole high school wing had pretty much evacuated the building that felt like they could evacuate. The thought process and the decisions that the staff and students made that day, it was very clear that Alice had done its job. They went from being people who waited to hear what to do to being people who made those decisions. Alice training definitely saved lives that day.
There we go. Let me just get the slideshow back up.
Hi, everyone. I do want to add, obviously, you probably knew this is a pretty heavy topic, but that's kind of the start of it. We are going to go through a whole scenario that happened, a shooting at a college. So just be aware that this is intense, and it has been intense for us as trainers going through all of this and leading our staff through this. So we know how sensitive it is.
Yes, and please, if you need to, don't hesitate to log off. If you need to go back and finish watching this, we are recording it. We'll get it posted on the website and sent out through Parent Square as soon as we can, in the next couple of days, hopefully. And we just want to make, so sometimes the mere thought of coming into school with the intent of harming staff and other students is upsetting. Some talking about it at all is traumatic. When we showed some of these materials to folks here in the district, it was, I'm sick to my stomach even thinking about it. Where's the conversation for a lot of people? So please, and we're planning on having more conversations in the future. If you need to come back to us after thinking about it with questions. I want to make sure. Can everybody see my screen? No. Okay. Oh, screen sharing stopped. Hold on. Let me try again. There we go. All right. So before we get into the details, in Alice, we really, so here's that Virginia Tech University. This is a pretty traumatic, this is a pretty traumatic story, but it really drives home why we went with Alice and where the thought process is for changing our plan. The traditional lockdown where people, where for years, for 15 or 20 years now, we've been training students to, turn off the lights, pull the shades, hide in the corner, lock doors if you can. This is a pretty good example of why we need to have more flexibility in our responses. This is on April 16th, 2007, there was a shooting at Virginia Polytechnic Institute State University, known as Virginia Tech. 32 people were killed, and it is still to this date the deadliest school shooting on record. We're going to walk through that event that took place in Norris Hall. So this is the hallway where the event took place. And the shooter came up onto that floor. It's on the second floor. And started in room 206. So you can see 206 on the graphic. The gunman walks into the room, kills the instructor, and then begins to shoot the students who hid under desks or went into the back corner of the room. The gunman then walks out of 206 and walks right into room 207 across the hall. He goes into this room. He kills the instructor and then begins to shoot students who are initially seated in desks. The students then try to hide while he shoots them on the floor. And then the students agree in room 205, right next door. The students hear the sounds, they're hearing gunfire. They quickly barricade the door with a table and chairs and sat against it because the door opened inward and it didn't have a lock on it. The gunman, with them barricading the door and sitting up against it, can't open the door. He tries and shoots the doorknob 3 times. And then with 3 rounds that went over the students' heads, and he still can't enter. So he leaves and doesn't ever go back to that room. Then he walks to room 211, the other end of the hall. The gunman enters that classroom after pushing a table out of the way and kills the instructor. No one was holding the table to keep the door closed. Matthew Laporte charges at the gunman. This is a student in the class. And is shot 6 times before going down, and the remaining victims hid under desks at the back corner of the room. The gunman walks around the room shooting people on the floor. Then, in room 204, Professor Lubrescu holds the door shut using his body and begins yelling at the students in his class to jump out the window. All of the students that jump out the window survive. Lubrescu is wounded when the gunman shoots through the door. The gunman then enters the room and executes them, and then he shoots the remaining students, killing one. Then he goes back to room 206. He re-enters that room a second time and continues shooting people on the floor. And then he walks out of 206, goes back to room 211. The gunman enters the room a third time, shooting people on the floor. Investigators believe that the Laporte is the last one shot in the back of the head and is the last victim before the gunman commits suicide. This is a really horrible incident. Almost 20 years ago, but it still feels like yesterday for any of us in education hearing about this story. And it really was just like other school shooting stories. I think that what's important and what we want to, why we did this is we want to kind of show that in the rooms where people didn't sort of take action and kind of just huddled down, laid on the floor, or tried to hide in the corner, those rooms had a lot of fatalities. In the room that they were able to barricade the door and he couldn't get in, no fatalities at all. And in the room where kids were jumping out the window, college students were jumping out the window, fewer fatalities, only 2. So that is the rationale for why we decided, why the DOE and FEMA and law enforcement across the country is in favor of some sort of response style strategies like Alice, as opposed to a traditional lockdown. In Alice, we focus on strategies that plan for the probabilities and not the possibilities. And when those of us went to instructor training, they spend a lot of time sharing statistics. There are, right, and so there's some stats here you can take a look at. I think the most important thing is that even though we're talking about school shootings tonight, and it's so hard to even think about, we have to keep in our mind that these are extremely, extremely rare events. Out of the hundreds of thousands of schools and colleges in the United States, there were, when you hear a number like 300, that's 300 too many, but it's extremely rare. Less than 1/1000th of 1% of schools experience a school shooting. That said, I think these are important life skills. We believe that these are important life skills for all students to have, because you're more likely to be involved in a violent attack or a critical incident outside of school than you are in school. 40% of active shooter attacks occur at businesses like big box stores, restaurants, bars, and there's just a few other, and they usually know, and shooters usually know their location. 98% are male. 97% of these things involve one shooter. So, we don't spend a lot of time preparing for, snipers in the woods and teams of people attacking a school, because the vast majority of school shootings is one single shooter, someone who's familiar with the school or place of work. 73% use handguns. And most importantly, that response time we talked about earlier, 70% of attacks last less than 5 minutes. They're over before the police get there often. I'm going to pass it over to, I can't remember now and I don't have it in front of me. Is it Selena, you next?
Yep.
All right. I'm going to pass it over to Selena Levitt to talk about the first few strategies in Alice.
The foundation for our Alice strategies is for everyone to practice good situational awareness. So this means being aware of your surroundings, using all of your senses to notice potential danger. Practicing situational awareness is a life skill. It's important for us to teach this to all students at all levels as age appropriate. For example, if you have a teenager or you've watched teenagers walk around, probably adults too, with their phones in their faces, and you want them to be more aware of what's going on around them, not walking out into traffic, just having that awareness.
Oh, sorry, hold on.
All right, Alice, it doesn't necessarily go in order, but the A in Alice is for alert. So this is when you sense something is wrong. You hear a loud noise, you hear yelling in the hallway, you smell smoke, anything like that makes you aware of a situation. It also might not be in your area, so the situational awareness might come from an announcement coming throughout the building, letting us know that there's something wrong. The I in Alice is for inform. So once you're aware that there is an alert, the goal is to provide real-time information to others in the building or in the location. As more information becomes available, the information is going to be shared. For example, maybe the first alert is that there's a disturbance in the east hallway. But once there's more information, we might come on the announcements, or we will come on the announcements and say, there's a white male in a blue shirt in the east hallway with a baseball bat. He is hitting lockers and screaming for someone. So giving everyone as much information as you can at all times is very important in the Alice program. Next is evacuation. So different than what we used to do, which is only a lockdown and just hide in a corner. We are training staff to evacuate when it is safe to do so. And that's why we are informing everyone of everything that's going on. The best way to avoid a shooter is to not be there. A classroom may start off in a lockdown, but then evacuate if the danger isn't in the area. Each school in our district has designated rally points where students will gather. This may be the same or different than just normal fire drill spots. Teachers are aware of those. Some schools have more than one rally point. Life skills that would be included for older students would be like how to break a window and clear out all the glass if we need to evacuate through a window, how to evacuate safely from a second floor. Most of our buildings with multiple floors are getting safety ladders to use if needed on those floors.
All right, Mr. Hand, I think you're up.
I had to turn on my microphone. So as Lori was saying earlier, the L stands for lockdown, and the difference between the lockdown that we're talking about is more of an enhanced lockdown versus, as we were saying earlier, huddling up in a corner and having everybody together and being quiet versus being ready to not only secure the room that you're in, but to also have situational awareness that Selena was talking about as to what's going on in the hallway. You're listening, you're making sure that you have points of exits, that you know where those are at in case you have to make a decision to leave. So all throughout this is really about empowering our staff to make decisions that to give them that power so that they're not freezing and getting stuck. So
To be on there.
we're currently training staff right now on how to secure doors and how to barricade their classrooms. There's a wide variety that can be used. And one thing that we stress is that we continue to stress is that no locked door has ever been breached in an active shooter situation. So again, like because instantly, even with our staff, like the questions just started coming out. What if? And we kept saying, go back to the facts. What are the probabilities versus what are the possibilities, and to try to have that mindset and really just be thinking and be ready so that you don't freeze in that situation, as we were saying. So, sorry, I just lost my screen. There we go. And in an enhanced lockdown, students are, like we said, they're not encouraged to hide in a corner. You think about it, if you're a person who's looking to harm people, putting them all in the same spot where you're aiming a weapon is not a good idea. You want them spread out. You want them being ready to move. You want them just to be at the ready at all times. So, where was I at?
You ready for me to click?
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh, and then, so there's two techniques that you want to do that the teachers have if they do get in a situation where the door is breached or if so two of those things that they're trained to do is the distraction technique and the control technique. The distraction technique is basically if that attacker's in the room, like they were saying, brain research shows that if they have to take in multiple things while they're trying to focus on something, that each distraction can cause them 1.5 to 1.6 seconds, which doesn't sound like a lot. Like it sounds like that's really quick, but it is a ton of time. Like every time, like if they're thinking about dodging a ball or people are screaming and they're attending to that, it takes their mind off of what they're trying to do. And so it's really teaching them on how to be aware of that and how to teach kids and staff on regarding that and how to respond versus just hiding in the desk or hiding in the corner. The other one, as we were saying.
Jim, I was just going to add. So what that might look like is kids just picking up objects, right? Teaching kids, grab your notebook, grab a stapler, throw your, and start and if somebody is able to breach, screaming, yelling, and throwing objects at the attacker.
Yeah.
So while that attacker is distracted by the throwing objects, it gives people an opportunity to escape.
Exactly. And then there's a video in here that we'll share that comes from a middle school, and you'll see kids in some of them just throwing papers. And just look, at first thought you might think that that's just silly, but again, keeping in mind, it doesn't really matter what's being thrown at them. It matters that it's breaking their attention. So thank you for that. Here we go. And then the other option for them is if they have the opportunity to take control of the intruder, and you do that by holding onto arms, a leg, and again, it's people overwhelming that person, and then just keeping in mind and training staff and kids that if that were to happen and they were able to get a hold of the gun, to make sure that you're not putting your hands on it. You're putting it either trash can over it and sitting on it, just getting it out of the way, but not putting it in your hands, because at any given point you could have, your police force coming in. And so you want to make sure that nobody is putting themselves in danger in that situation. So
I think this technique of control that is only for age appropriate. This technique is only, this part of the training would only with adults and with high school students. Younger students, middle school and elementary students do not learn about how to control an attacker.
Right.
As a matter of fact, in a lot of school districts, when they're doing the trainings with younger students, the C in Alice stands for communicate, and the focus is on listening to the adults and following directions.
Great point.
Thank you, Jim.
Yep.
So I think so that's what the letters stand for, and those are the primary techniques that we work on. There's a lot more detail to it. We've been spending time teaching teachers how to use a cord to stop a door from opening, or how to pull off your belt and use it as an apparatus, and things around the room and how they can be useful, right? And as for barricading, we're spending a lot of time talking through scenarios. Think about your space that you're in. What room would you, if you're in this room, what are the exits, and then where would you go? What would your plan be? And talking through tabletop scenarios with the adults, so they can, okay, well, if we had noticed that there was something going on down the street, and we had to then when we have kids outside, I know I got to bring the kids inside, and we might be sitting inside for a long time. Having those conversations has been really helpful. I want to focus. We have not started training students yet, right? We're spending the rest of this year focusing on finishing up our plans for training adults. We're working our way through every building to get through certain pieces of training. But when it does, we're hoping next fall to begin, and starting with older students, working our way down. We're hoping to do some training and drills that involve students. And if we're going to have drills with students, we're going to use age-appropriate techniques. That little link there, I'll be sharing the slideshow with the public, so you can grab it later, or you can take a picture now and type it in. But that link is to the ALICE guidelines for age-appropriate guidelines for ALICE training, and it breaks down each group. Something that's true about working with all students is this is not like a fire drill where they're sitting in class doing their work and the fire alarm goes off and then they have to go through the fire drill. These kinds of drills are never a surprise for students, and parents will always be informed in advance. Teachers will talk with students in advance and prepare them for whatever that practice is for the day. Maybe that practice is today we're going to learn where our rally point is, and if there's a bad guy in the hallway, we're going to practice. Instead of walking like we do in a fire drill, this time we're going to run and we're going to meet at our rally point, and that might be the drill for the day. And just so that they become more comfortable with some of those strategies. Staff will always keep an eye on students and provide additional support if they appear to be in distress. Teachers will always debrief after drills with students and give them a chance to share feelings and talk about what happened. And we reaffirm that drills are meant to keep them safe. So specifically with elementary students, because I know that that's probably the place where if I had an elementary student, I'd want to know a lot of details. What exactly are you going to do with my child? The youngest student drills will focus on listening to directions of their teachers, right? They'll learn what to do when they hear alarms or announcements over the PA system, or when the teacher tells them to lock down. And that'll probably be the extent of it for pre-K, K, first, second grade. Just follow your teacher's directions. Older elementary students, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, they'll probably discuss available options during emergencies and practice ways they can stay safe in a situation, such as simple barricades or blocking doors. There's a really, I spent a lot of time looking at videos on YouTube. There's a lot of them out there for ALICE techniques. And there's a school district, Davison School District in Michigan has a couple of good videos. They have a video that walks you through what they do with elementary school students for ALICE prep. It's over 10 minutes long, so I'm not going to show it right now, but we will share the link with everyone. And I want people to, so if you have an elementary child or you're really curious about it, give that a watch, because I think that it might not be every detail the way we plan to do things, but it'll give you a good idea of what it might look like in an elementary classroom. It's just a little long, 10 minutes is long. Middle school students, along with all the things taught in grades pre-K to 5, middle school students will also learn more advanced barricading techniques, more advanced evacuation techniques and options. We may talk about how do you safely drop from a 2nd floor window. We won't do it, we won't practice it, but we may talk about it. Distraction techniques such as classroom items and loud noises to distract an intruder. Those are things that kids learn about and participate in at the middle school level. High school students may also learn how to break a window, advanced distraction strategies. If some may choose to participate in a training to control or disarm an assailant, and how to secure a weapon by putting it in a trash can or on top of a shelf, not holding it in your hand. You don't want a police officer to come barreling into the room and see a child holding a gun and think that's the attacker. Most importantly, no matter what the age, we're going to learn how to get as far away from the conflict as possible. Right? That's our primary goal, either by evacuation or barricading. I have the Davison Middle School video is only 5 minutes long, so I'm going to play that one right now. And then after people and it kind of will review all the things we just talked about, and then we can open up for questions. Hold on.
There is a new reality in our lives. No longer is learning in school just about science and sports. Now, it also has to be about safety. Davison Community Schools has recognized this need and is always looking for better ways to keep its students and staff safe during these trying times. Sitting and locking down in place is not the only option anymore during an active shooter incident. Today, we will look at a new system being taught all over the nation called ALICE training. ALICE is a proactive way to handle an intruder or an active shooter of any kind. ALICE stands for Alert, Lockdown, Inform, Counter, and Evacuate. Each one of these situations can be used to deter intruders and get you to safety during a dangerous event. Let's take a closer look at the ALICE system. First, it's important to be alert in any situation.
Staff, activate secure mode. Staff, activate
You may be
secure
informed
mode.
of a shooter by someone giving
activate-
instructions over the PA system in your school. But more than likely, you will hear gunshots, screaming, or other loud noises that will indicate that there is a serious problem. Stay alert and use your eyes and ears to pay attention to what is going on around you. Also, be sure to alert others of a situation that may be dangerous. Lockdowns may still be needed in times of an intruder, but now we can use an enhanced system for lockdowns. If you cannot escape the room and an intruder is near, then the best option is to lock down in place and keep the intruder out for as long as possible.
You know what you're going to show is the relevance and we need to lock down right now. Lock down, lock down.
This means using whatever you can to barricade the door. Moving desks, filing cabinets, tables, and anything else you can move can act as a huge deterrent to the intruder, and this can give police valuable time to respond. Also, make sure to spread throughout the room. Do not bunch together into one spot. Look for alternate ways to escape, maybe another door or even a window. Get out if at all possible. Also, knowing what way doors open can help. You may have to use a belt or a cord of some kind to tie to the doorknob to keep the door closed. Using these proactive methods for lockdowns can make a huge difference. An intruder may have to put down their weapon to try and get in, or they may just give up entirely. If you are in a safe place and can share important information, the next step is to do so. Getting this information to the right people is critical in dangerous situations and can save lives.
Got an intruder in the West Wing. Officer Paul, we've got an intruder in the West Wing.
Knowing where an intruder is, where they are heading, what they are wearing, and how many intruders there are can drastically change the equation. For instance, if we know a shooter is firing down near the gym, that information can allow students in other wings of the school to evacuate safely before the shooter reaches them. If you are confronted with a shooter or a dangerous intruder and cannot get out, the next step is to counter. Distracting the shooter by any means can take his attention off of shooting targets and can be very successful in buying you or others time to escape. A group of students throwing things at the shooter is a great way to counter the shooter. Imagine trying to aim and shoot while students are throwing books, staplers, phones, and water bottles. Creating distractions like this may seem pretty lame, but actually it is very hard to aim and shoot a gun accurately while dodging objects from all angles. Yell, scream, and move around if you have to also. Safety is not lame. This technique is designed to create time and maybe even space for you to escape, distract the shooter, and get out. This is the idea behind the whole counter strategy. The final ALICE point is the most obvious. Evacuate. Don't let an intruder get to you. If you can safely exit the building, do so. It is okay to run and get out quickly. Use the information you have to evacuate the right way. Where did you hear the shots? Where are people running away from? PA announcements, any information of where the shooter is will help people get to a safe exit. Note that doors may not be the only safe way to exit. Also consider windows and connector doors that can go from room to room. Find any way to safely exit and get out of harm's way. Once outside of the building, do not run towards law enforcement officers. Cops are on high alert during these situations and are looking for the attackers. Running towards them may be dangerous, especially with objects in your hand. Even a phone may look like a gun to a cop during a high-stress active shooter event. Being part of an active shooter event is a terrifying experience. Being trained and knowing the steps of ALICE training can be life-saving. No event is the same, and no one knows when and where the next shooting will be, so it is up to us to be alert and ready to act. Lock down if needed, give accurate information, counter the shooter if you come into contact with them, and most of all, evacuate to get out of harm's way.
But just to explain some school bus stuff too, I don't know if
Absolutely, Sherry. Go ahead. You've got the floor.
So I just wanted to take some time, as we're aware that it's not just inside our buildings, but it's also on our school buses. And I think it's important that the community also is aware that we are in those conversations here in transportation. Officer Bradway and myself worked with our transportation department in March to kind of review Alice as a whole. And as we start to implement, we do 4 evacuations on our buses a year through the Department of Education. But we are also looking to increase our training on ALICE practices within the school bus as well, because as we're aware that it can really be anywhere and it's a life skill for all that are involved. So I just want to take that quick moment to kind of inform everybody that this is also taking place on the school buses as well.
Thank you. I see one. So if you have questions, you can click on the little box that looks like a talk box. And you can type questions in the chat. There's one question that says some schools do drills that are intended to be realistic, such as simulated gunfire. Those will not be done with students. It is not recommended that any kind of simulation drill is done with students at any age level. We will offer maybe this spring in some places, but next fall we'll start offering simulation drills for staff that are willing to participate with Nerf guns and loud noises and air horns and so on. But we would never do those with students. Students will just be practicing the techniques in a planned setting where there's an opportunity to talk with teachers afterwards. Will we have a safe pickup zone? We have a safe pickup zone. We do. In any time that there is a major event, anything involving guns or hoses, fire or violent emergencies, or anything where it's unsafe to be on school grounds, students are transported to the University of Southern Maine Gorham Campus Fieldhouse. That is our relocation site in the event of a major emergency here. We always those of you who are familiar with what happened last year in Sanford, they had a swatting event, which is a fake shooting report, but it felt real, and they went through the scenario, and they transported their students to an off-site location for reunification with parents, and that is what we would do as well. We would strongly remind people not to come to the scene where all the danger is to pick up their kids, and I know that that's hard instinct. Instinctively, that's what parents will want to do. But our plan is to transport students to USM and Gorham if we have to evacuate a campus. There are no concealed carry teachers on site. It is not legal in the state of Maine. The only person with a firearm in our district is our school resource officer. He's primarily at the high school. Any other questions or concerns or comments? So I think for now, we just want to focus on if you have questions, don't hesitate to contact your school. We have hold on, I'll reshare where I was. We have 7 certified ALICE training instructors here in the district. All of these people have attended a 2-day training and have lots of information about these strategies, and they are the ones taking the lead. There are specific rules about who can train and how to train employees or staff when you're using ALICE strategies. So far we have 7 trained instructors. You can see there Deputy Bradway, Mr. Hand, Selena Levitt. We have Molly Mangione, assistant principal at Buxton Center Elementary, myself, Craig Pendleton, the principal at Buxton Center, and Sherry from our transportation department. So that, and we occasionally, it isn't always easy to find trainings in our area. There is one coming up this summer in Southern Maine, and we may send another couple of people, but 7 is a good critical mass of trainers. I think we're in a place where we are able to get out to buildings. The hard part is finding time with all the other competing things that we have to train. But for example, this is one of the things we do during those early dismissals is this kind of training. And we've been working our way around the district. Like I said at the beginning of the meeting, this year we've focused with teachers on learning the strategies, practicing barricading doors. They have done tabletop exercises where a scenario is read to them, and then they work in groups to talk about what they would do in response to that scenario and what their steps would be. This is the end of our presentation. We will record, this recording will be sent out. We'll probably send something out on Parent Square and then post it somewhere on our website. I anticipate we will be doing this exact same presentation again in the fall before we start doing drills with students. We may also, and we will be sending out more notices by school when individual schools are doing training or drills. Since though people want to, are we aware? Oh, a couple of things jumped on.
Most are just thanking us, but are you aware of other schools in Southern Maine that are choosing
Yeah.
it?
Yep. Yes, several.
Yeah.
Sanford does it. Gorham has done it for quite a few years. Gorham has a lot of trainers too, because their police department has a lot of instructors. So if we ever want to do a bigger training, when we get into these bigger trainings with scenarios, it wouldn't be unusual for us to call up and say, hey, we need 4 more trainers to get this, we have 600, almost 700 staff in our district. Things like this take time. And I know other districts I taught with before we started talking about, well, how long does it take before you feel like you've got it in place? And most of them said about 3 years. So we're just finishing our first year. We're just getting to a place where we have a capacity of staff who have a basic understanding. So there are quite a few, I couldn't name them all. There are quite a few who use ALICE strategies to varying degrees. Right now, it's financially prohibitive to become an ALICE certified school. That would require a commitment and purchasing stuff from Navigate 360. And so we are focusing on getting enough of our own trainers trained and using our local law enforcement agency to help us with our drills and just focusing on making sure our kids have these life skill strategies. I highly doubt that we'll, knock on wood, but it's very rare that there's a school shooting. But I like to think that these are skills that kids will have when they're adults or even when they're out and about in the community. I actually was doing a training this afternoon at Frank Jewett School with about a dozen staff, and we were reviewing barricading. And I talked about how I was in Walmart last summer, and there was a big, and there was somebody who was having a very bad day and was threatening and screaming and being violent in the store. And I was fascinated by how well the staff had been well trained, and the staff knew exactly how to respond to keep people safe and to keep that person safe until law enforcement could get there. So these are skills that you might need to use in other settings, which is also why we wanted to go through it with parents and why we will continue to have these conversations moving forward. Since we have a little time left, I will show that elementary video. I might as well project it because it's not 7 o'clock yet. But if you don't want to watch it right now, our feelings won't be hurt if you sign off. But because it is 10 minutes long, but I'll click back through the slideshow and show that elementary example for those who are interested in what Davison schools in Michigan say it looks like in an elementary setting. So I'll go back to that one for anyone who wants to watch. Otherwise, have a great evening.
Or the stranger, or your other goal is to do whatever you can do, scream, holler, yell to get attention and to get him to leave you alone. If a bad person comes to our school, we want to do the same thing we do with stranger danger. We want to get away from them. So today, you're going to learn a few things that you can do to stay safe if a bad guy was in our school. Are you ready? So there are three important things. How many? 3. 3 important things that you're going to learn today. The most important thing that you need to remember is to freeze and listen to your teacher. Point to your ears. Who are you going to listen to? The teacher. teacher. So what's the first thing you need to remember? Everybody? Listen to your teacher. Yes, let's put our hands on our ears and say that one more time. What are we going to do? Listen to our teacher. Yes, because the teacher is going to tell you what to do. Okay? So for example, there could be an announcement, and the announcement might say, lockdown, bad guy in the first grade hallway. Your teacher might tell you to leave. They might tell you, you need to run out the library door. This is called evacuate. You leave to get away from the danger. What is it called? Evacuate. So put your fingers up, evacuate like you're running. So we're going to, what are we always going to do? Listen to your teacher. And if your teacher tells you to leave, you're going to evacuate and go where they told you to go. You're going to run as fast as you can away from the danger to a safe place. Do you have to wait for your teacher to run with you? No. No, you don't wait for your teacher to run with you. You run and go out the door that your teacher told you to go out of and get to a safe place. What is that called, everybody? Evacuate. Evacuate.
Here is an example of evacuate. Remember, listen to where your teacher tells you to go.
Because of the treatment his people had received. In the next week, Little Willie and Searchlight went over...
Staff, activate lockdown. Follow Alice procedures. Bad guy is in the first grade hallway. Staff, activate lockdown. Follow Alice procedures. Bad guy is in the first grade hallway.
Next week, Little Willie and Searchlight went over...
Staff, activate lockdown. Follow Alice procedures. Bad guy is in the first grade hallway. Staff, activate lockdown. Follow Alice procedures. Bad guy is in the first grade hallway. Careful.
Well, sometimes it won't be safe to evacuate. Sometimes a bad guy might be so close to our classroom that it's not safe for us to evacuate into the hallway and out the door. So if that happens, we do something called barricade. Think about our classroom. What would be something that we would want to barricade? Morgan? The door. The door. We want to block or barricade the door so the bad guy cannot get in. What are some heavy things around the door that we could use to barricade or block it? Vincent?
Chairs.
Chairs. Levi?
Desks.
Desks. So those are some heavy things that we could use to barricade or block the door. So we would want to take all of those heavy things and push them up against the door to block it. And then after we've barricaded the door, we're going to hide. So the third thing that you need to remember is to, if you cannot evacuate, you're going to barricade, block it.
Here is an example of barricade.
In the next week, Little Willie and Searchlight went over...
Staff, activate lockdown. Follow Alice procedures. Bad guy is in the first grade hallway. Staff, activate lockdown. Follow Alice procedures. Bad guy is in the first grade hallway.
So we learned 3 things. What's the first and most important thing, everybody?
Listen to your teacher.
What's the second thing?
Evacuate.
If you can. If you can't, you're going to barricade. Yes, or block the door with heavy things. What if the bad guy got into our room? What should we do then? What should we do then?
Throw stuff at it.
We could throw stuff at him, right? Because think about what we talked about with stranger danger. What do we want to do? Scream, yell, run? Well, if the bad guy's in our room, you want to do the same thing. You're going to scream, you're going to yell, you're going to run all over the place, and you're going to pick up anything you have. What are some things that we could throw?
Pencil boxes.
Pencil boxes. What could you throw?
Water bottle.
Water bottle. So what could you throw? Books. Anything around you. And you know what's going to happen when you start throwing it at the bad guy? What do you do when someone throws stuff at you? Show me what you would do if someone threw stuff at you. Yeah, you're going to be like, oh no, right? Well, guess what? That's what the bad guy's going to do. When you're running around and screaming and like this, he's going to be like, oh no. You might even scare him. That is called counter. We're going to counterattack and keep ourselves safe. That's if you cannot evacuate or leave.
Here is an example of counter.
So what are the 3 things that you learned today? If there is a bad guy or bad person in our school, what is the first thing?
I'm going to stop it there because she just repeats herself. But I see one more question popped in, which is about cameras. We have extensive cameras in every school building, even the elementary schools. And actually in the middle school office, there's a setup very similar to the one in that middle school video. It kind of made me chuckle. They have a big monitor right there with all the different camera views showing. There's some, so there's definitely blind spots. It's not perfect in every space, and we are always looking, and we use a lot of grants, and we've used some grants over the years to install more updated equipment. We have some very updated equipment at the high school, in the middle school too. Maybe the cameras are outstanding now. The quality is really good. Okay. Thank you very much. Like I said, don't hesitate to reach out to your school if you have questions, or you can certainly reach out to me here at Central Office. I'm happy to answer them. And like I said, stay tuned for more information to come. Have a great evening, everybody.